dear students, welcome to another English class of Study Zest, the world of educational solutions. Today, I will be discussing some important analytical points and parts, and I will be also discussing in elaborate manner some important aspects from the poem The Road Not Taken by Sir Robert Frost. Okay. So in the previous class, I had covered the poem. I had explained the poem stanza by stanza. And today we will be remembering the poem, rebrushing our memories. And along that, we will look into the analytical part of the poem. But before moving on, I would like to remind you of our social media platforms through which you can connect with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you can get notified whenever a new video comes up from us. Like us on Facebook page, join our Telegram channel using this link. You can find us there. Follow us on Instagram, join our WhatsApp group using this number given here. And for more information, you can log into the website www.studyzest.in. As you can see here, our YouTube channel looks like this. Do subscribe to our channel, like and comment on our videos if you like them, and we will come up with more better contents for you guys on regular basis. So press the bell icon to get notified. And this is how our Facebook page looks like. Do like us on Facebook and you will get daily updated study related materials. Now, the Road Not Taken poem is not a very usual poem. Okay, it's not kind of poem that you read and there is just one meaning. It's a multi-layered poem. Okay. So, what did we have in the previous class? We knew that the poet was walking through the woods where he faced a kind of fork. That means a road that leads to two different directions. Okay. And then he became sad and regretful that I can't follow both these roads at once, although they look tempting to me. And then he finally decides that he will travel through the path that is less traveled, and it looked tempting and grassy to him. But then again, he looked carefully and he saw that both of these paths look kind of similar. So what if they actually lead to the same destination? Or what will happen if I choose this path and this path will lead me to some other paths in my life? Okay, so in the next part of the poem, when the poet decides that finally I will go through this less traveled path and one day in future I will come back to go on to the other path, and then he realizes that it is practically impossible, because in human life we always go forward. It is practically impossible to move backward in time and come back to the same place. Okay. So then the poet at the end, melancholically or sadly, he decides that okay, I will choose this path, but he obviously expresses his regret that in future he might always be living with this idea that okay, I chose this path in my own opinion and in my own proper mind. I chose this path. But what could have happened if I had chosen the other path that day? Okay, so ऐसे ही होता है, ठीक है. हम लोग जो चूज करते हैं वो हमारा लाइफ डिसाइड करता है, ठीक है. लेकिन ये हमेशा एक रिग्रेट रह जाता है कि अगर ये नहीं करके वो करती तो कैसा होता, ठीक है. So that regret is making choices and then having some regrets are all parts of human life, and that is what the underlying meaning of this poetry. Okay, now let's go into the analysis of the poetry. This poem is one of Frost's most beloved works and is frequently studied in high school literature classes. Since its publication, many readers have analyzed the poem as a nostalgic commentary on life choices, right? So basically the poet here, when he talks about choosing a path in the forest, he is actually talking about making a choice in life. Okay, so if I give you this picture, then it actually stands for life. Okay, the choices that we are confronted with in our lives. Now, the narrator decided to seize the day and express himself as an individual by choosing the road that was less traveled by. So what did the poet do? What path did he choose? The path that was less traveled by. मतलब जो रास्ते से ज़्यादा लोग नहीं जाते हैं, ठीक है? As a result of this decision, the narrator claims his life was fundamentally different that it would have been had he chosen the more well-traveled path. This is very important, okay? Please look out for the spelling here. Okay, sorry for that. As I was saying that the poet narrator here says that after choosing the less traveled path, obviously his life has been different, and then also he can't stop himself from thinking that what would have happened if he had taken the more traveled path. Okay, so that curiosity always lies on his head. That is what the poet wants to say. That gives this poetry a personal touch. Okay, that gives this poetry a personal touch from the poet. Okay, so he made a decision when he had to make, but then he can't keep thinking about it, that what would have happened if he had chosen a more traveled path. This reading of the poem is extremely popular because every reader can empathize with the narrator's decision. As I said, that Robert Frost is so popular because he is relatable. मैं और आप हम सब इनसे relate कर सकते हैं. We all have to make decisions in our lives, day-to-day lives. Okay, in from the very smallest parts of our everyday life to the biggest decisions like of our career, of our personal life. Every day we are confronted with difficult choices. So that's why we as readers, when we read the poem, we empathize. Empathize means we can actually understand the emotion of the poet, who has to choose between two paths without having any knowledge of which each road will lead to. Obviously, the poet had no idea where the paths will lead to. जैसे कि आप सोचिए, when you are given or just a very generic and interesting, I guess, example. Okay, so consider this. An actor is given two scripts, okay? And he likes one script more than the second script. Okay, so he chooses this number one script. He makes a film on it, and then that film becomes a flop. Okay, now constantly that actor will think, what would have happened if I had chosen the second script? Would it had been a hit? Okay, so this is the very fundamental example that I could come up with. I hope that you understand the thing that I'm trying to convey, that every day we are faced with choices that we don't know any knowledge of the result of. Okay, कि अगर हम लोग साइंस लेंगे तो करियर कैसा होगा, देयर इज नो फिक्स्ड रूल्स, और कॉमर्स लेंगे तो क्या होगा, तो यू नो लाइफ हैज इट्स ओन रूल्स. सो दैट्स व्हाई वॉट एवर चॉइसेस वी मेक वी ऑलवेज एंड अप रिग्रेटिंग कि अगर नहीं वो चूज कर लेती तो क्या होता. ठीक है. So, moreover, the narrator's decision to choose the less traveled path demonstrates his courage. Obviously, if you are faced with certain decisions, hard decisions, and you choose by yourself, voluntarily you are choosing that I will go on the difficult path, जो path से बहुत सारे लोग नहीं गुजरते हैं. ठीक है, I will take that path and I will follow it rigorously, I will follow it loyally, then you are showing courage. Okay, rather than taking the safe path that others had traveled, the narrator prefers to make his own way in the world. Very interesting, isn't it, that the poet, when he makes a choice that he wants to go through the less traveled path, that means what? He knows that not many people has gone through this road, and not many people has seen or experienced what it has to offer. So that's why, that's the point where the poet here wants to express that it was not a safe or easy path for him, but instead of that he chose it. Although he had a safer option, he chose a more challenging one. Okay, that's why he is portrayed here as brave. However, when we look closer at the text of the poem, it becomes clear that such an idealistic analysis is largely inaccurate. The narrator only distinguishes the path from one another after he had already selected one and traveled many years through life. That means if we just look at the poetry from the poetic point of view, from the literary point of view, then there might be some mistakes from the readers. So what should we do? We should look at it practically. Okay, like when we are reading this poetry, जब हम पढ़ रहे हैं इस पोएट्री को, तो क्या हमें दिमाग में रखना चाहिए कि जो पोएट है वो कैसे दो रास्ते को अलग कर रहे हैं, ये देख के कि कौन सा ज़्यादा ग्रासी है, कौन सा ज़्यादा ग्रासी नहीं है. ठीक है. And after he has chosen, he also expresses that one day will come, he will regret his choice. Okay, and he first comes upon the fork in the road. The paths are described as being fundamentally identical. So in terms of beauty, in terms of looking at the roads were equally fair, and overall passing there had warned them really about the same. So although the poet thought that he is taking a difficult path, a more difficult path, actually in practicality the both roads were quite similar looking. Okay, it is only as an old man that the narrator looked back on his life and decides to place such importance on this particular decision of his life. This is very important here, as we can see from the 4th stanza of the poem, where as an old man, as a grown-up man, the poet now looks back to that decision he made that day. Basically, when he says that he is choosing a path, he is referring to a life decision. Okay, remember this here. Do remember this here. Okay, whenever he is choosing a path, that means he is making a life decision here. Okay, this is very important. So that's why during the first 3 stanzas, the narrator shows no sense of remorse for his decision, nor any acknowledgement that such a decision might be important to his life. Obviously, the narrator was young. he had the courage to choose the difficult path, and he did so. But it's only after he had grown an old man, where we see in the 4th stanza, he expresses that a sense of order of past and explain why certain things happened to him. He wanted to explain these, that as a life choice that I had made, the life I had lived has happened to me. Of course, the excuse that he took the road less traveled by is false, but the narrator still clings to his decision as a defining moment of his life. So, whenever the poet says that he had made this decision when the poet was young, and he thought that he's probably going on an adventure by going on a difficult path, it is actually in practicality a false assumption, because दोनों रास्ते ही सेम दिख रहे थे. पोएट के लिए वो जो रास्ता उन्होंने चुना था, that looked grassy at some point, so he kind of justified to himself that I am choosing this path जिससे बहुत ज़्यादा लोग नहीं गुजरते हैं. ठीक है? And not only because the path that he chose, but because he had to make a choice in the first place. Now what important here is this, is that the poet here actually emphasizes on the fact कि उनको decision लेना पड़ा. The decision making process is important here. Okay, not the fact that where it led him to or what regrets he had. The important point here is that the mental state in which the poet made his decision, that is important. Whenever हम लोग जब भी हम लोगों को कोई ऐसे choices लेने का जब बात आती है, तो we kind of justify to ourselves that okay, I am choosing this path for certain decision, I am taking this option for some decision. So no matter how much regret we have or happiness, success we have for that decision, we can say that everything comes down to that one momentarily defining point of decision making. Okay. Next, what is the theme of the poem? The theme of the poem Road Not Taken revolves around choices. This is very important. Choices, making choices is the important part and theme of this poem. It is about the decisions we make and the fact that we must live with them. मतलब कि अगर मैं आज सोचती हूँ कि ठीक है चलो मैं सब जॉब छोड़ के एक बिजनेस खोलने वाली हूँ, ठीक है, तो उसी अगर बिजनेस में मुझे इन्वेस्ट करना पड़े तो वो एक बहुत बड़ा डिसीजन है, and that decision may turn my life positively or negatively, and I have to live with that decision of my life. Okay. Similarly, the poem is often seen as an inspirational piece as it propagates मतलब कि spreads the idea of choosing the unconventional and favoring the new and unexplored ways. So whenever we are young, we always think कि जो conventional है, जो tradition है, rules है, उसको break करके चलो कोई कुछ नया करते हैं. Okay, so this thought also occurred to the poet. It is seen as a salute to individualism due to popular interpretation. Individualism means the individualistic decisions that we make. However, the poem is more queer. Queer means strange. And vague means unclear. Then it appears at first glance. While the lines, I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference, advocate the idea of taking proverbial leap of faith, believing it will lead to good things when read eventually, the same doesn't fit in the full context of the poem. Okay, so proverbially this is believed that we should take a leap of faith. We should take a leap of faith. That means let us just try something new. It might lead to good results or bad, but its whole accountability is और responsibility belongs to me, क्योंकि मैंने डिसीजन लिया था. ठीक है. बेसिकली चॉइस मेकिंग जो है वो एक एक इंडिविजुअल के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है. दैट इज व्हाट द पोएट हियर वांट्स टू से, एंड दैट्स हाउ आवर लाइव्स आर मेड अप ऑफ चॉइसेस. It also appears as a commentary on our self-deception. The poem has two interpretations, which is a stark contrast to each other. Two interpretations. What are they? One, which is popularly held by laymen. Laymen means common men. Is that it is a motivational address, while the other, regarded mostly by some poetry scholars, that it is completely the opposite of inspirational and delves in the realm of quiet regret as a mere cautionary tale. So there are two interpretations that can come out from this poem. One is what? It is inspirational. How? That is, it inspires you to take the path, or it inspires you to explore the choice that is more unconventional, or it inspires you to take the path that is less traveled. Why? That is, not much people goes through that path. And the second is that the second opinion about the poem is that the poet Robert Frost ultimately expresses his regret in the last part of the poetry, where he says that probably he will narrate his story of choosing this path with regret in the future. Okay, so the poet achieves this by remaining neutral in the poem regarding his choices and allows the reader to pick out the meaning they want from the poem. Okay, so the poet here becomes very clever. He never gives a very clear definition of his feelings, or he never gives a very definitive answer to what had happened to him after he chose the path, but he keeps it open to all, open to interpretation for his dear readers. And even today we are reading this poem, and we are obviously interpreting the poem in our own terms. And let us look at the central message of the poetry. The road not taken suddenly presents the speaker and the reader with a dilemma. Dilemma means what? Doubts. There are two roads in an autumnal woods separating off, presumably the result of one road splitting, and there is nothing else to do but to choose one road and continue life's journey. That is this. You can refer to this picture here. The central message is that in life we are often presented with choices. When making a choice, one is required to make a decision. Viewing a choice as a fork in path, it becomes clear that we choose one direction or another, but not both. Obviously, if you see this lines here, I have to, okay, I'm talking about me personally here. Looking at this picture, I have to take one path here. Okay, so what path do I choose? I like this path more, so I will take this decision of following this right path. Okay, right sided path. Okay, now the road not taken, force does not indicate whether the road he chose was the right one. So he never gives us any clue about what happened to him. Was it successful attempt for him to trod on the less traveled unsafe path, or what happened to him? However, it is the way he is going now. The place he ends up, for better or worse, was the result of his decision. However, he had to make a decision which he made, and now he had to live with it. Okay, and most importantly, the poem is open to you all readers. Read the poem, go through the poem, and I hope I could make the poem simple to you guys by this time. And as I said previously, that by taking this decision, the poet first thought that by taking the less traveled path, he is making an unique decision, but which was actually not true. Both the roads were actually similar. However, the poet thought that he will return one day to his same position, and he will try the original, that means the other road again. But would it be possible? Perhaps not, because life has a way of letting one thing leading to another until going back when there is going back is no other option. Obviously, whenever I choose a path, life will take me from one place to another, and there is very like 1% chance that I can again come back to the place I started from. Okay, but who knows what the future holds down the road. The speaker implies that when he's older, he might look back at his turning point in his life, the morning he took the road less traveled, because taking that particular route completely altered his way of living. And with that, I would like to conclude the analytical and explanation part of the poem Road Not Taken. Thank you for joining me. If you like the video, do like and share our videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. I will be back with more question answers part from this poem. Until then, take care and goodbye.